So when the countdown thing is over, we're talking about black guy sex stuff, or we're talking about like podcast
I'm not
stuff?
editing. I'm leaving this in.
This serves him right. He's been drunk with editing power for too long. They just have to pay. You just have to atone now for what you've done.
So this episode is going to be about the Online Trainer Academy. Not black guy sex stuff. So in 2013, I launched the world's first course helping fitness nutrition coaches get more freedom by working with clients online. Since then, we invested over $1 million into things like curriculum development, research development. It's helped 10,000 plus fitness nutrition coaches build, like, both coach better and build better businesses, or help their clients better and stuff like that. And I wanted to record an episode today because the evolved version of that course, called the Online Trainer Academy, is going to go up in price by $400 on May 18th. And so you've probably heard us speak about the Online Trainer Academy. Amber is the program director. Ren is one of our mentors in it. Or you might even have had somebody else tell you about it, because we've got, like, I don't even know, we've got over 1,000 screenshots of, like, testimonial stuff. There's probably 100 plus, like, reviews online, YouTube, Google, whatever. You can, if you Google it, all over the web. But you might not quite know, like, what it is or why it exists or how it'll help you make more money, have more freedom, help more people. So Amber, Ren, and I thought it'd be a good idea to commit an episode to telling you about it, so that you can decide whether it's right for you, and if so, register before the price actually goes up. So if you're interested in this episode, totally cool. If not, that's also cool. Don't listen to it. Flip around to another episode in the podcast and listen to that, and then come back for the next one. So before I forget, the registration link is onlinetrainer.com/academy. And that, just type that into your browser. That'll forward you to the actual sales page. You are welcome to listen to the entire episode, or if you prefer, there's going to be timestamps as well. So if you have, like, specific questions, we've probably answered them. This is just way easier than giving you, like, a giant FAQ, and you can hear us talk about it a little bit. So I'm going to go over the curriculum and, like, what's in it. But first, I want to answer some common questions, like things like costs, time commitment, how long you have access, guarantee, support we provide for you, all that kind of stuff. Then we're going to answer some common questions Amber and her team get a lot. Things like whether or not it'll work in your unique situation, how it compares to other options, why it's cheaper than a lot of other options, whether you have to be just online to do it, and how it's going to help you stand out in what many believe is to be a saturated industry. And then we're just going to get into the sign-up flow, so you know exactly what to expect and what will happen right when you buy and what to do next. I'm going to start with a brief history of kind of how it came about. Before I do that, Amber, Ren, anything you guys want to add to, like, the docket of things to talk about there? Amber, you and I spoke about this, but Ren, we kind of blindsided you with this topic. You're muted, Ren. Good job.
I know.
We start with the podcast talking about your sexcapades in Disneyland that you just came back from, and now
what?
Now we're talking about this. It's a very, very professional sales
podcast.
What are you
drinking, John? It looks like you're drinking beer.
Cold brew coffee. This is my as an introvert who has multiple phone calls today. This is like my reward is hopping myself up on extra caffeine than normal.
Just getting by. It looks like the butter beer from Harry Potter.
Smooth,
world.
It's frothy.
Yeah, which I visited by. No, but I'm excited for this episode.
UI, okay, I want to talk about the UI experience of drinking this coffee first.
What?
The UI of this coffee is terrible because they tell you that you're supposed to shake the can really hard and then tip it upside down to pour it. But that doesn't work, because if you shake it really hard and you tip it upside down, you can't open it. So I have to use, like, a fork to open it, and then the damn thing sprays everywhere. Stupid concept. Anyway, go ahead.
What I was going to say is I'm excited for this episode because, number one, I don't have to talk much, and number two, I don't know any of the stuff you're about to talk about. Like, I don't know anything about OTA except I went through it and I help coaches. Other than that, I got no clue.
Cool.
I don't know how much
stuff
costs.
Awesome contributions. I got a lot of pieces of paper for this one. So
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ann, for that. So a brief history. In going back to 2012, basically what happened was I started my website, the PTDC, and it started to gain a bit of an audience. And I believe that the best way to build a product is actually to build a community and then you ask the community what problems they have, and then you build the product to solve that problem, as opposed to what most companies do, which is like, we have this widget, we have this thing. Okay, how do we get people to buy the thing? I was like, well, we got people, what do they need? And then I just went and built it. And so in 2012, we did like massive data collection. So I did 137 phone calls, one-on-one with people. Each one was 13 minutes long, so that I could fit 4 in an hour with 2 minutes in between for a pee break. And I did that over the course of a few months. And I was asking questions like, it was the same questions, but I was asking like, hey, what are your long-term goals? What are your frustrations in the industry? What worries you? What's going to stop you from making this a career? And at the same time, we sent out a survey, and the survey ended up having over 1 million data points coming back from it. And what I was able to delineate from all of that was the one major problem that every fitness professional has basically a year or two into their career, which is they need to figure out how to make a bit more in a bit less time with a bit better schedule. So I didn't know what the solution was going to be at that point. But I don't think that you can start to like establish solutions until you actually figure out what the problem is. So I figured out the problem. And what was also interesting about this was that it wasn't like people didn't desire across the board, like anything massive, like making 6 figures. Most trainers are simply hardworking people who just needed a better business model. And that was interesting because at the time, I mean, more so now, but at the time is when you really started to see marketers being like, here's how you get to be a 6-figure trainer. And I was having all of these phone calls, and that wasn't what anything wanted. Right? Everybody was like, man, I really want to make, if I could make like $500 to $1,500 more a month, that would be a game changer for me. I don't want to stop training clients, but I need to be able to figure out a way to do this and like have a good life and what's going to happen when I have a family and all that kind of stuff. And then there was one of the respondents to the survey. It was anonymous, but one of the respondents to the survey mentioned online training. I never thought about online training before. This is 2012. And I thought about it. And I was like, all right, well, this checks all the boxes. Like, it doesn't have to be something full time, but this checks all the boxes that it needs to check. So what I did is I built a business. Like I literally just like in my head envisioned a business model for it. And then I invited 24 people to be part of a beta coaching group. And in that beta coaching group, I coached them through it. It was like a founding client challenge, basically, is what I did. Because I don't think that I think before you have customers, before you have clients, you really don't know what you have. And the only way to figure out what you have is to actually take somebody through something that's imperfect. And you don't pretend like it's perfect. You tell them that you're like testing it out with them, right? And so I did that, and 22 completed it, provided feedback, and the feedback was positive. And so I turned it into a course, which at that point was called 1K Extra, which was centered completely around the theme of how do you make $1,000 extra as a personal trainer, right? It wasn't even online specifically. I mean, that what we delivered was an online training business model. And that launched March 2013. So that was, to my knowledge, the first ever educational course for online fitness coaching, online fitness business, online fitness coaching. And so 1K Extra launched 6 times. We had 300 to 500 students in it each time. And then after it closed, over the years, we got increasingly sophisticated in just gaining feedback from students, talking to them on the phone, following how they used it or not used the materials. Like, we even went so far as I had multiple staff members who created Facebook accounts and friended our students to follow what our students were doing or not doing with the materials. And they had systems of collecting that data so that when it came time to revise it, because we launched it every 6 months, and in that period between launches, we were just taking in data of how people were using it and not using it. And we were iterating on the curriculum and on the methods. And one of the ways we did that was we actually, like, we didn't just talk to you. We actually watched what you were doing or not doing and then iterated based off of that. And so every time it launched, it kept getting better, of course, right? And then in 2016, I involved it into the Online Trainer Academy, which is the version that it's in now. And with that, released the first ever textbook on online training, which is Fundamentals of Online Training, which is now in version 4, but the first version of it launched back then. Same type of process. From 2016 to 2019, we launched it 6 times, every 6 months or so. wasn't exactly every 6 months, but every 6 months or so we launched it. And we just kept getting more sophisticated. So we did all the stuff we did before, but then I also hired a PhD in distance course learning design to assess the learning models. And one of the things that she brought in is we iterated the materials to make them work for people with different learning styles. Some people just learn different. And so we iterated it based off of that. And then I also brought in the senior course developer from Yale University to also do an independent audit in around the same time. And then in 2019, 6 full years of product innovation cycles is when we stopped launching and we made the Online Trainer Academy available full time. And since then, we've continued to update it and improve it like where necessary, but we don't do the launch open and close anymore. During those same years, I was an advisor for almost every online training software company. And I was the first person to speak about online fitness business for most of the major certifications as well at their conferences. So like NSCA brought me into their National Personal Trainer Conference, ACSM, same thing. All these like old school, kind of old hat, like scientific organizations. I was sometimes even the first person to talk about business at their events, but I was definitely the first person to speak about online business. But here's what stood out the most to me about this entire process, which like dates back now 10 years, which is crazy, right? Like, Amber, how long have we been working together?
It'll be 6 years in October.
So I got to give you a raise in October. Okay. I gave you one last year, I think, didn't I?
Yeah, it was 6 months late though, so you know.
Yeah, but it was a big one.
It was. This is true. Facts.
But here's what stood out to me in those 10 years is how little has changed between 2013 to today. Like, we have different social media, a lot of social media platforms have come and gone. I mean, Snapchat, Clubhouse, Periscope, like a lot of features of social media platforms that were like the features you have to use, like you have to use Facebook groups, you have to use Facebook Live. Like a lot of these features have come and gone. So sure, we have different social media platforms, but the humans who use them and the reasons those humans use those social media platforms and hire coaches is the same it's always been. But it's not even social media that really matters. The fundamentals of how to build a service business that allows you more freedom in your life while providing your client a great service is the same as it's always been. And not only that, people still buy based off of familiarity and trust. And influencers and entertainers online might be getting more clicks. They're not getting more clients. And that's the difference. The reason is simple. Like, there's no connection or no reason to trust them. They're entertainers. Like, just because somebody is good at dancing or good at communicating very simple ideas in a really engaging manner in like a short form video, you have no reason to trust them as being any sort of an expert that you're going to take like their help. You do that based off of familiarity more than anything else. You do that based off of some sort of personal connection that you feel to that person. And that's the same as it always is. So as crazy as this sounds, what I taught in 2013 about how to build an online fitness business not only still works, it actually works better today than it did in 2013. And it will work better in 2025. It'll work better in 2030 because as technology continues to progress, people increasingly want to connect more as humans. And so, sure, the buttons might change, but the humans that press the buttons aren't going to change. And so what's actually important is that you understand the humans and you understand how to sell and serve the humans. Figuring out how to press the buttons, that's academic. That's easy to learn. That's a Google search or ChatGPT search or whatever you want to use. And I guess, to bring this all together, like since 2013 to today, it just seems to me like everything's different, but nothing's really new. And so, yeah, I mean, we've updated the materials for sure, but the core of the curriculum, I mean, when you're learning foundations, when you're learning fundamentals of how something works, it doesn't change. Think about that with your own fitness. Think about that with your own nutrition. Yeah, sure, the fancy stuff is fun to do sometimes, But the foundations of what you really need to know to build a great body or eat well, that hasn't none of it hasn't changed at all. In fact, most of the trends that come and go are actually the same thing repeated with different language. Like low carb diets. How many different names has low carb dieting come and gone with? What do you? Let's spit some out. Atkins,
Keto,
Yep.
keto,
Low
paleo,
carb diet. Miami, I think the South Beach diet was a low carb diet as well.
South Beach.
caveman.
Yeah, the paleo, all the paleo stuff. I mean, it's all the same thing. It is all the same thing. It's just branded differently over time. And that's not even to say that it works or it doesn't work. It just shows you like everything's different, but nothing's really new. And I think people who have been in this field for a long time really understand that. So I don't know. Let's get into this. We'll start with a first sort of challenging question, which is, will what we teach in the Online Trainer Academy work for you? Your situation's unique. And so, Amber, you told me a story when we were talking about this episode yesterday. You told me a story about a student who signed up for a different program or didn't sign up because they were like forcing him into their model. Tell me what was going on there.
Yeah, so he was comparing different coaching programs, and one that he was kind of like, maybe it would work. But his concern was that like it was their way or the highway. Like this is the way you have to do it in order to succeed. And that was concerning for him because like, well, what if that doesn't suit me or my clients or the way that I want to run my business? And so that was something he was really worried about and what he was hoping to find an alternative to, because that he was concerned it may not work for him.
I mean, there's absolutely best practices. Right. And the Online Trainer Academy will teach you the best practices. But the reality of it is there's a lot of stuff that's going to work. And so is there a capital B best way to build an online fitness business? Maybe there is. If there is, I can guarantee you that it's not going to be the best way for long. Because if you're trying to jump on some trend or some algorithmic change or some technology, like that shit's going to change in 2 weeks. So you're going to constantly be chasing it, number one. But let's say that you actually found the capital B best way to do this. Okay. First of all, you wouldn't even know that it's the best way. You'd still be searching for another way. But let's say for this thought experiment that you found it, like, is it the best way? Maybe. But I can also guarantee you that there's a lot of lowercase ge good enough ways that are going to work just good enough for you as well. And so the best way for you to do a thing might not be the best way for somebody else. It doesn't mean that other person is wrong. It doesn't mean that you're right. It just simply means that you're different. And so our job with the Online Trainer Academy is to teach you the best practices and then to guide you into putting it together in the best way that works for you, that's most aligned with how you want to operate. And that can be a really challenging process because you are going to be comparing yourself to other people who seem to be doing much better than you. Whether they are or not, you don't really know. But it's going to appear that way. But that's how we approach it. And so will the Online Trainer Academy, will what we teach work for you? Yes. And I'm confident in saying that because I know that we know the best practices because we've been doing this for a decade, which is longer than anybody else because we were the first program to ever do it. I think that we've helped more people than everybody else. I got to think that we are probably close to have helped more people than everybody else put together, although I can't make that claim. But it's got to be close. But even then, I just know there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. There's a lot of ways you can use social media. You don't have to use social media. Like, you can use one type of social media. You can use Reels. You can use writing. You can go to your local Toastmasters. You can knock on doors. I spoke to somebody in my hot seat today in our mentorship who, like, he's faith-based fitness, and his podcast is interviewing local pastors from churches that have an affinity towards health about what health and spirituality have in common and how they integrate those two into their faith. And then he's sending a pamphlet to all of the people of that church, of that pastor, to listen to that episode where he interviewed the pastor of that episode.
Brilliant.
Like, there's so many ways to do this. You won't ever hear the story about that person. His name's Ellie. You won't ever hear the story about that person unless you listen to the Hot Seat episode that's going to come on our podcast in a few weeks. But you won't ever hear the story of that person anywhere because it happens behind closed doors. It's not for you. It's for members of that church, right? And so there's lots of ways to do this. And you don't see many of the ways because they're behind closed doors. So will what we teach in the Online Training Academy work for you? Yes. Yes, it will. I'm confident saying that. With that said, how does OTA compare to other options? It's a hard question to answer because I don't want to talk shit about other stuff. And I don't think it's right or justifiable for me to talk shit about other stuff. So it's hard to say for certain how it compares because I don't know what other options you're looking at or whether you're even looking at other options. My guess is you've been messaged on Instagram about 50 times. But other than that, I don't know if you've seriously looked at anything. It does seem like everybody who has 1,000 followers on Instagram has somehow become a fitness business coach. Mm-hmm. But I also don't really pay attention to what anybody else is doing. So I really don't know. What I will say, though, is this. The model that we teach is very boring and it's very reliable. We teach a model that I call one to a few. A lot of other people will try to teach models that are super scalable. Here's how you build a membership site with thousands of clients, or here's how you build this, this crazy scalable thing and become a 6-figure trainer. It's like, I'm gonna back you right up. Let's take this thing step by step. Your first job is to get 5 clients. From there, get to 20 to 30 clients, one-on-one. We have a custom pricing calculator where you enter in a whole bunch of variables. It'll map out your pricing and your packages for you. It'll make sure it works within the time that you have. Once you have 30 clients reliably, then you can worry about more scalable models or not. Most don't, because most don't need to. But you can think about it then. But until you get to that point, you need to focus on the fastest and the most reliable way to start, which means you need to train people online in as many similar ways that you're used to with as little new stuff as possible. I don't want you to get bogged down. I want you to get started. And so we don't overpromise. There's this desire nowadays online to scale, to make passive, and like none of that stuff is inherently bad, but none of it comes first. You wouldn't get somebody to do a single leg squat on a Bosu ball before they know how to do a goblet squat with a dumbbell. It's the same thing. You do step 1 before you do step 2. You do step 2 before you do step 3. Like if you skip the steps, you might get lucky. Odds are you're going to fall on your face because you're on a Bosu ball on one leg, which is a dumb thing to be doing anyway. And so a lot of people are trying to skip steps and jump ahead, and they're trying to get lucky. And so the truth of the matter is, you hear about stories where people get lucky because they're remarkable stories. It makes for really good content. It makes for really good inspirational stories. But whenever I'm looking for a system to emulate or a system to learn from, I actually look for the most boring, reliable, and repeatable system possible. And I don't look for those crazy I might look at those inspirational stories as inspiration, but I'm not looking at them to learn what to do. The only reason you're hearing about them is because they're remarkable. The only reason that people are remarking upon them is because they're outliers. When you're trying to learn something to better yourself, don't follow an outlier story that's remarkable. There's nothing to gain there other than perhaps being inspired. And so we don't overpromise with the Online Trainer Academy. The goal is to get you your first 5 clients. You're literally guaranteed to do it in 90 days or your money back. That's $1,000 a month. We based it off of $200 a client. Might be your pricing, might not be your pricing, but that pays homage to the original name of 1K Extra. So how does it compare to other options? It's boring. It's reliable. It's repeatable. We've proven it since 2013. Like, you probably don't know a lot about the online course space, but to have a course that's reliably sold month after month after month for a decade is virtually unheard of. Most online remote learning courses last maybe 2 launches. They're around for a year, 2 years max. When you have something that's been around for 10 years in online learning, it's virtually unheard of. And the reason is we don't try to do too much with it. This isn't some big 6-figure trainer promise. How's a Twizzler, Ron?
Delicious and filled with preservatives.
I love how, so, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure you're okay with me sharing this. Like we pay Ren to be here. Amber's staff, so it's like, oh, she gets a salary, but we pay Ren to be here. So basically what I'm doing is paying Ren to eat Twizzlers while he listens to me right now talking about OTA.
He comes on the group today and say, Ren, you're not going to do much today. Are you okay with that? I was already opening the Twizzlers when you said that. So, I'll struggle through it.
If you want to support Ren's Twizzler habit, buy OTA so that we can afford to have one more episodes.
I want to be swimming in plastic shoelaces that are slightly edible.
I like how we all snack on things that are terribly unhealthy. For me, it's usually Cheez-Its and Diet Coke. For Ren, it's Twizzlers. You're the exception. You eat veggies, John, but you bring a pop on every once in a while. So
yeah, he's got 6,000 milligrams of caffeine in his cup, though. He's like an espresso triple shot.
You know what? Actually, so the company that I buy this from, I'll give them a shout out. They're called Station Cold Brew.
Nice.
They were on Dragon's Den, which is like a Canadian Shark Tank. But they, a buddy of mine started it. He's actually a really interesting dude. He was big in the kombucha space, and then jumped into cold brew. And the reason that they did well on Dragon's Den is they patented the idea of storing cold brew in kegs and delivering it to like big events.
That's pretty cool.
Really cool. So they took, like the Guinness beer cans, how they do, I can't remember how they do it, but they do it like carbon dioxide or something like, I don't know exactly how they do it, but there's some method that keeps it fresh for a long time. And they were like, well, that works for beer, and beer's got a patent on it for beer, but nobody's patented that for coffee. Thank you, millions of dollars. But it's really good. But anyway, so the ones that they stopped making the kind that I used to buy, and this is the new kind, and it's tastier, but it's less caffeine. So it's only like 120 milligrams, which is enough at 4:00 in the afternoon. Anyway, why is the Online Trainer Academy cheaper than other options? It depends what you're looking at as other options. Amber brought this up yesterday when I was asking her what questions I should answer, and so I guess she hears a lot. To me, OTA is the perfect blend between a mentorship that's really expensive and then a fully do-it-yourself course that leaves you in the lurch. Like, there's a whole bunch of really cheap, really fucking shitty courses that tell you that they're going to help you be an online trainer, but they basically are just like, here's how you set up your digital camera. It's like, that's stupid. And those are offered by like cough cough NASM. Your course is shit, but that's like offered by the NASM course is junk.
I've seen it,
but that's often offered by the certification companies who's like, that's not what they do, right? What they do is they offer your initial certification, and then they're like, well, we could make money like selling other stuff too, and so they do. And so, that's like leaves you in the lurch, doesn't really prepare you for anything. And then there's the mentorship. So like we have my mentorship, which is higher end, which is for people who have already started, right? So Online Trainer Academy is generally for people who have not started yet or doing less than $1,000 a month. My mentorship is for people doing $1,000 a month plus who are looking to scale. The mentorship is considerably more expensive than than the Online Trainer Academy. The Online Trainer Academy, I designed it to be a hybrid approach where we've built custom tech. Our learning portal is completely custom built and designed. And we built it, we customized it to do all of the heavy lifting, like deliver the curriculum to you. We built in the worksheets, the submissions of some stuff. I'll get into that in a bit, but where you submit your work and where you get feedback. But then there are experts to offer you support where you need it, that pop in where you need it, how you need it. Right. And so so it's kind of this hybrid approach where we leveraged, and this is a lot of what I teach too in the Online Trainer Academy, like leverage technology and automation where humans don't need to exist so that humans can show up in a greater capacity where humans need to show up. And it's kind of a meshing on the two. Amber, there's two places I think people submit their work, right? The social media audit and the
Can
you talk about this?
So technically there's 8 built-in exercises, but there are 3 where you submit it and a mentor reviews it and sends back feedback. Those are all in module 1. And so we have your USP and 1% uniqueness factor. So we send feedback on that.
Which is where the person really dials in on what makes them unique and special. Some people call it the niche. I think it actually needs to go deeper than that. But that's a part where we identified over the years of just A, people skip it, B, people superficially go over it, C, they're really nervous about it. And so it's really helpful to have a human be like, yo, you nailed it, or here's some more questions to ask. So in the portal, you submit basically your homework, and then we respond to it and give you really detailed feedback. And you get an email saying that there's feedback, and then it actually shows up in your learning portal. So it actually now shows up in your account as you're going through the feedback.
And we do the same thing for the business name, and we do a really in-depth social media audit where students can submit one link to one of their social media profiles, and we tear it down. And hopefully build you back up in the process, but point out all of the things that could be stronger, and share ideas, little tweaks, those kind of things.
And you do that via video, like your
yes.
screen,
and not like a 5-minute. Like at minimum, they're generally 10 to 20 minutes, especially if it's me because I can't shut up. So they tend to be pretty in depth. Usually, if we get feedback, they're like, holy cow, I was not, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. And that was amazing.
And those are things like, hey, here's how we can do better with your image. Here's how we can do better on your name. Here's how we can do better with your description, your links. Hey, your content. Here's how we can dial this in. Here's where you did a really good job. Here's where maybe you could improve. Like, really, I mean, I've seen those things. I was like, oh crap.
Please put your name on your account.
Yes.
Where it usually starts.
Not your business name.
We'll save you the trouble. You don't need to sign up for the Online Trainer Academy. Use your stinking face and use your stinking name. Beth. Come on, Beth. Use your name. Okay?
You just saved several $100, Beth, with that advice. You no longer may need us if you just do that.
And I get it, all you polyamorous vegans from California out there. I get that you all really want to have a green leaf as your freaking Instagram image. We get it. You're polyamorous and you're vegan. You don't need to tell us about it, and I don't need to see a video of you jumping in a bucket of ice. Okay?
Oh my gosh. The green leaf is so consistent. That's so accurate.
Moving on.
Oh, God.
Do you have to be online all of the time? I'm going to spit out a rhyme. Ring the doorbell, it might chime.
Stop it.
That would be sublime.
My niece had a birthday. They played with slime.
He's just going through the alphabet in his head right now, thinking.
Right.
Mime?
I'm going to be a mime.
Yeah.
Saw my wife today. She looked like a dime. Is that a thing?
A book of homonyms in front of him.
Is that a thing? Is that when you say that?
Yes, it's a dime. Yeah. You do.
She's a
you
dime
did well,
piece.
John. Yeah, you did well. Oh, that's amazing, John.
Yeah. I called her my bai the other day, and she was like, "What are you talking about? Are you a sheep?" And I was like, "No, bai." She's like, "What?" I was like, so I wrote it out for her on a piece of paper. I was like, BAE. She was like, I think it says bay. I was like, oh.
How many times a day does she roll her eyes at you, pulling nonsense like that? Are they stuck in the back of her head, or like?
Far too young to be this out of touch, though. Like that's what always amazes me. Like, dude, I was born in the 70s. How do you not know these things?
So the question of whether you need to be online all the time in order to build a business that's sublime, it's you don't is the answer. Most people are hybrid that do the program. They're not all online, and like again, this is your choice, right? Like we will guide you to build a business that works for you, and that also might change. One of the things that I'm going to get into a little bit later on is just how much this stuff changes. And this isn't a course where you're like, you finish it, you put the book away and you never look at it. Like people will go back to these materials year after year after year because their situations might change and they adapt. And that's why you have lifetime access. And so if you want to travel the world and be nomadic, like that's totally cool. But also most coaches like the human to human interaction. For them, leveraging online training either on the side or figuring out how to combine online or in person, which we call hybrid, which I think I invented. I don't actually know. I think I invented it. It's definitely the first person to write about it. But which we call hybrid, it's a great way to help more people and just make this more of a sustainable career. And so, no, you don't have to be just online. It could be a supplement. It could also just be like disaster prevention. We saw this in COVID, man. The people who like, you never know what's going to happen in the future. And you never know what's going to come up in your personal life or like societally, but you want to build a very robust business. And the way to do that is to not have your hands held with one very strict business model, right? So even if you don't want to train people online that much or at all, you still need to know how to use technology to do it in case something happens. So COVID is the obvious example. Like the people who had done the online trainer academy when COVID happens just cleaned up because most folks weren't prepared. Well, the people who had done the online trainer academy were. Even the ones who weren't yet training online were prepared. And then my favorite example is Rhonda. So Rhonda had a really difficult situation. Her daughter, who lived a couple states over from her, had a daughter, and the man wasn't around. I don't know what the situation was, but the daughter had special needs. And basically what Rhonda had to do in order for her daughter to go to work during the week was she flew back and forth to her daughter every single week for the first 2 years until her daughter qualified for daycare. And the only reason that she could do that is because she had an online training business. It wasn't full time, but she made it full time once she had to do that and be there for her family. And like, it wasn't easy for her. She worked in airports. She worked in the closet while her granddaughter was sleeping. But she had no idea that when she bought the online trainer academy, that her daughter was going to have a child and the child was going to have special needs and she was going to need to fly multiple states over every week to help look after this granddaughter so that her daughter could go to work and support her family. She had no idea that that was going to be there, but like she was prepared. And I always remember that story. Because I think that type of robustness and preparedness is really important. Okay. Do you have to use social media to get clients far away? No. If you listen to this podcast, you know not. I mean, what's the example that I used before? Like, you could use social media to build a social media account, or you can use social media to build a business, and they're not necessarily the same thing. The example that I gave of the podcast earlier with Ellie, like, you can use a podcast to try to be a famous podcaster. You can use a podcast to try to build a business. The example with Ellie with the pastors, where he's interviewing the pastors, like, he's not going to become a famous podcaster, but he's going to build a business with that podcast. And so social media might be a tool that you use, and it can be quite effective, but you don't ever have to train clients who live far. And it's actually harder to train clients who live far away. And it's more expensive too, because there's often more fees. And $200 is $200 is $200, whether you get it from somebody around the block or whether you get it from somebody in Uruguay. It makes no difference. It's the same money. Most online trainers never work with anybody outside of their own city. The ones who do often start working with people in their own city or connected to people in their own city. And then sometimes it expands outside of that. There's an example of a student, Mike Biter. Last I heard, he was doing like $265,000 a year. It's probably more than that now. This was like a year ago. But he hired his girlfriend. They run a business together, and he does nutrition primarily, but he does like a hybrid nutrition program and runs it locally. Like he doesn't have any clients who live far away. And he goes into the gym that he used to work at. Basically, the gyms in his like small town didn't have a nutrition program. So he was like, hey, let me offer the nutrition program. And what he started to be able to do was because he knew how to leverage technology, because he had the online training from the Online Trainer Academy, what he was able to do was offer a better service to these people while still offering the human-to-human connection. He's like, if you want to come meet me in the gym, sure, we can do that. But you also don't have to. And so he was basically able to offer the best of both worlds to them, and just blew the competition away locally in the small town in Iowa he's from. And so what I teach in the Online Trainer Academy is to work backwards from the problem. Social media is a solution. It might be the right solution, but it also might not be the right solution. How most people use it, posting random fitness stuff, is definitely not the right solution. What they're doing is they're starting with a solution without looking at the actual problem itself. Trying to become famous online and trying to build a coaching business, they're just two different goals. Neither goal is better or worse. They're different. If you want to become an influencer, do influencer things. It'll take a long time. Odds of success aren't that good. Basically, if you want to become an influencer online, I can tell you exactly what to do step by step by step, and I still wouldn't be able to guarantee your success. Building a coaching business, leveraging online business, or not, or leveraging online media, or not leveraging online media, but depending on your skill sets, target market, and goals, in figuring out what to do, working backwards from that problem, like who's my target market, what are my goals, what do I want to do or not do? And then you work backwards from that problem and figure out how you're going to get clients. It's more reliable and repeatable, and I can guarantee you success there, which is why I do provide a guarantee with the Online Trainer Academy. If the goal of the program, if the goal of the Online Trainer Academy was to build your social media following and not get clients, because the two aren't necessarily related, if the goal of the Online Trainer Academy was to help you build your social media following, I would not feel comfortable offering you a guarantee on your success, because I can tell you all the steps and you still might not be able to do it. And so the guarantee that we do offer is $1,000 a month. You're going to make $1,000 a month within 90 days of starting the Online Trainer Academy. This is based off of 5 clients paying you $200 a month, though your pricing might be different, right? So that's 90 days from when you register. And you have to complete, I think it's 3/4 of the material, right, Amber?
You have to complete half of the built-in exercises. Just so we know that they gave the old college try.
Yeah, you got to actually have done the thing, which I think is reasonable.
Super.
And what else? It's self-paced. So you go on your own time, wherever you are, anywhere in the world. Totally cool. Access doesn't expire. So if you want to sign up at onlinetrainer.com/academy, now before the price goes up, but you're not quite ready to start yet, still sign up now and you'll have access when you're ready to start, right? How long it'll take you is up to you. For most people, we generally say it's like 20 to 25 hours of focused work. But I want to like add a corollary to that, because it's not a complete it and close the book when you're done course. It's a take action course. You're actually going to do your first launch by the end of the first module, which could be like 5 hours or so in. And the reason for that is twofold, because you're not going to be ready yet. And that's the point. You don't know anything until you've trained a client online. Doesn't matter when anybody teaches you. You don't know anything until you've trained a client online. Without having a client, you have no information to base your decisions of how to build your business on. You have no context through which to base any of these decisions off of. Clients have to come first. Once you have a few clients You also, I mean, A, you make some money, but also you have context then to start to go through the materials, right? And understand them a little bit better. I want you doing this stuff in the real world. I want you seeing benefits to the stuff. Too many courses don't actually get you any tangible results. And I think that that's a problem. Like if you wanted another fitness nutrition certification that'd help you help your clients, but unfortunately you don't have enough clients, well, you could have done that, but you don't have clients to help. So your first priority should probably be to get clients to help, right? And then you can start doing more and more and more education. My guess is right now you know enough to help people. Thinking that you need to know more, like fitness nutrition wise, when you don't have enough clients or you're so burnt out that you don't have a sustainable business, is productive procrastination. It's a way often for people to feel like they're doing work to better themselves and solve a problem, but they're actually just doing more of the same thing that they were doing before. And what did Einstein probably not say, but everybody says that he says? Doing the same thing and as you've always done and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. Okay, where are we at? Saturation of online business. Is fitness online saturated? Yes and no. Fitness, the way that most people do it online, is saturated. If you play the Instagram game, you'll have a hard time standing out, for sure. I can guarantee you that there are people who make better videos than you online. There are definitely people who make better videos than me online. I don't make videos online. That was a joke. But it's but the answer to getting past online saturation, online market saturation, is to play your own game. You don't hear stories of most of the successes, of the real successes, because you don't see them. That's precisely the point. They exist in small communities you're not in. The people who really win in this game are the people who ignore the ego game of trying to get likes, and they focus on the people they serve, and they focus on what makes them unique. Mm-hmm. The Online Trainer Academy is all about making you the obvious choice to a few who don't compare you to anybody else. You're in a market of one, not a market of a few. You're literally in a market of one. There is no comparison to you. There's no price shopping. There's none of that shit. You are the obvious choice. It's the name of this podcast. Not an accident. I truly believe this. It's not about trying really hard to be seen by a whole bunch of people that don't care that much about you, but kind of like how you danced online. If you do that, I wish you the best. You're not going to like the Online Trainer Academy. It's fine. There are a bunch of courses that will teach you how to be an influencer, and there's nothing wrong with wanting and trying to be an influencer. It's just not what we do. Because I don't like doing things where I can't guarantee you success if you follow the plan. So what happens when you sign up? Okay, so you're like, hey, John, shut up. It's been like 45 minutes. I'm going to do it. Just shut your face. I'm going to listen to you in a whole bunch of videos anyway. You're not going to have a beard in those videos. What happens when you sign up? I don't think I have a beard in the videos, do I?
No, you don't.
No, I don't think so. I was so sick when we filmed most of those videos. I was so sick.
You hit it well.
I remember I got home from the first day of filming, and I pulled one of the. We were in New Jersey because that's where that's where Justin was, who did the videos with us, and I was with Alex. And I remember Justin and Alex went into New York City to like party that night, and I got back to the hotel after the day of filming, and I fell into my bed with all my clothes and shoes on, and woke up the next morning.
Nice.
I was so sick. So enjoy those videos. Now you can think of you being sick. So what happens when you sign up? Right away, you get obviously your receipt. You'll get an email from me. That's kind of a fun email. Hope you enjoy it. And you're going to get a login to the Custom Learning Center. Now, the Custom Learning Center, the first thing that you'll see when you get in there is an assessment that you fill out. This assessment is really, really quick to go through, but what we realized over the years is that different people join the Online Trainer Academy at different stages of their journey with different desired outcomes. So what this does is once you fill it out, it's actually going to pop out a custom study guide for you so that you know exactly how to navigate the materials specific to your situation. And so you'll know basically where to start. From there, you're off to the races, and you'll go through the textbook, which is here. You'll get a digital textbook. If you want to buy the physical textbook, you can. It's extra, but you'll go through the textbook, and then you'll complete the assignments in each section. There's some of the time there's accompanying video material. Sometimes there's checklists, worksheets, stuff to submit. And then, you want to go over the curriculum a little bit, Amber? You got a few minutes.
Yeah, sure. So when you first go in, you'll do the onboarding module to make sure that you understand what to do, what to expect. And then once you do that, there is a bonus mini course that you'll do called Finish What You Start, because we know.
Ooh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, there's
that's a course.
It is.
It's super short, but I was like, I filmed that, and I was like, man, I fucking nailed that. Well, I did that a separate time. I did that like a few years after we did most of the videos. So I wasn't sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I nailed that. That's a good course.
It was. And because everybody does the same thing, is where they try to take on way too much and do too many things. And so it just really kind of helps set your mind right before tackling the rest of the course. Then everything else is, unlocked. And then you can go through it either chronologically or per the study plan that you receive. Module 1 is...
So
go ahead.
You're going to run through it?
Yeah.
Okay, go for
Yeah,
it.
module 1 is all about, setting the foundation of your business. So how much money do you actually need to make to feel good? So we help you figure out like your freedom number, which I suggest you revisit like every 6 months. I think that's really important. Same thing with how much you actually are charging, but that's a separate conversation. We'll help you figure out your USP, which is going to be the foundation of every choice you make after you exit module 1. It influences.
It's your vision. It establishes your vision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then same thing with your business name, your social media audit, and then we're going to make you do the big scary thing of doing your founding client challenge. And we're going to make you get your first clients.
What's that? Page 63. So module 1 is called Mindset. Page 63 of the textbook, which is 310 pages, is getting your first online clients.
Yep.
Just to give you an idea, 1/5 of the way through the course is when you start getting your first clients. Okay. Module 2 is business structure. So that's where you get into all the details of how you're going to craft your support systems, how you're going to build your programs, what's going to be in your welcome package. You'll build it. We have templates for you. Your application forms. I was going to say what software to use, but you're going to use Quick Coach, so that's fine. And then how to price your services, and then all of the legalities surrounding online training, getting set up for that, knowing exactly what to do, feeling safe and secure when you're operating, that you actually have yourself covered, because most online trainers don't. And that can be kind of scary. Anything I missed in module 2?
No. You said pricing calculator. Yeah, pricing for packages and stuff. That's everybody's like favorite. Yeah. Make sure
everybody pricing. Well, so I'll talk about how we do the pricing a bit. So we actually have coded in a pricing calculator into the learning portal. It's really cool. And what you do, because your pricing is right for you, it might not be right for somebody else. There's no one best price. The price is based off of what you want to offer and how much time you have to offer that service and how much money you need to make. And so there's a bunch of different variables. And then, of course, your like tax rate where you are. And there's a bunch of different variables. It's not a complicated calculator, but you plug in the numbers and you'll get a realistic, hey, here's what I have to price this at. And it might shock you in that it might be really high or it might be really low. And then you can do alternate scenarios. So then you can start playing around in the numbers and you can be like, well, actually, okay, I wanted to include all that stuff in my packages. But in order to do that with the amount that I want to charge with the amount that I need to make in the time I have to charge too much and I'm not comfortable charging that much. Okay, well, what if I take an hour less with each client and I pulled this out of the program? Well, then what do I need to charge? And what this calculator does is it tells you all these different scenarios. And so you can really quickly and confidently just map out exactly what the right pricing is for you.
Yep.
Module 3 is client care. You want to hit that, Amber?
Yeah.
This is your favorite one.
It is. Everybody feels like, going online, it's a wildly different beast, and it is and it isn't, right? A lot of the skills that you have in person transfer online, but you have to be a lot more thoughtful and thinking ahead when dealing with clients online. So how do we actually get clients to do what they need to do in order to succeed? How do I hold them accountable if I'm not physically there counting their reps? How do I help them work through the kind of mind games that they're pulling on themselves that's preventing them from making the change that they've so desperately needed? And so we help navigate all of that stuff in module 3.
What I love about what we do in module 3 is there are so many questions when it comes to client care for online clients that you don't even know are questions yet. Mm-hmm. And this is such a good example. What we do there is such a good example of learning from other people's mistakes so that you don't repeat them. Like, you don't even know the questions to ask with online clients. Like, what do you do if your online client doesn't send a check-in and doesn't respond to your message? Mm-hmm. How do you re-engage that client in a respectful way? Because maybe they just went on vacation, right? Maybe maybe their phone went out of service, or maybe they hate you. Like, it could be any of those things and anything in between.
And just to be clear, it's like a 0.01% chance that it's that they hate you. I mean, there might be somebody out there that's the case, but just to not scare them, John.
But in your head, that might be what you're thinking.
100%.
And so what do you do in those scenarios? What communications do you send? Right. And that's what I really like about that is there's so many of these little nuanced cases where you'll be reading through them and you'll be studying them in the textbook and the videos, and you'll kind of probably gloss over them, but then it'll happen to you and you'll run and get your textbook.
Control F is your friend
and you'll
in the
know
digital textbook.
Yeah, and you'll know exactly how to answer and how to navigate some of the sticky situations. Because like in person, we don't have that as much. In person, we're often with the person. We can talk to the person. We can react to the person. Online, you need to proactively anticipate. And a lot of the time, our brains take us and tell us stories that are crazy. Module 4, marketing. So, I mean, not a lot to say here. Basically, how to think about marketing online. It all stems from your vision. We get into email marketing. We get into a couple of different marketing, scholarships, transformation contests. But really how to use whatever platform you decide to use, and get it to work for you. So, I mean, marketing is pretty straightforward. How do you actually get the clients? And so that's the core curriculum. So once you finish module 4, the test, the certification test unlocks for you. And you get one attempt at it. What is it, 60 questions?
Yeah, you have 60 questions, 60 minutes, pass 75%. And then there's a quiz for each module as well. But
right. And so you can decide or not decide to take the test. I mean, a lot of people like to take it because then you can call yourself a certified online trainer. Then you get a automatic certificate that gets generated. You can print that. You can put it on your wall. A lot of people get clients when they promote that they finally got certified because they celebrate it on social media, and people are like, oh my God, great. And then they're like, I've been meaning to reach out. And so it's just a really nice kind of excuse to celebrate yourself and have people celebrate you and inquire about your service, is that certification. And then there's a bonus module. And so this is a pick and choose. It's not included in the certification exam. But I call it skills, or I think we renamed it to level up your skills. And these are things like, hey, let's up level you where you feel like you need to be up leveled. And so we go over sales calls. We go over sales copy, price theory. How do you actually generate great testimonials? How do you build your operational documentation so that you could get somebody else to work for you at one point? Similarly, hiring a virtual assistant. Navigating that whole process, start to finish, from like figuring out when you need one to hiring one to onboarding them. And so that's all covered in the skills module. So anything you want to add to any of this, Amber, when I mean, that's all that I
There's
had in my 6 pages of notes.
There's another bonus mini course about building your first website, or if you have an existing one, how to make it better. I wouldn't, mess with that until you're in, past certifying and kind of doing the other level up skills, but it's there if and when you're ready, if you ever need it. We also have a ton of kind of tried and true content done by other coaches that's performed well.
Ooh,
I forget how much, but it's all, the captions are there. There are a couple options for Canva graphics that you can adjust and brand, to whatever you want to do.
Basically, a huge collection of done for you content that you can brand to yourself.
Yeah. So that's there as well. Yeah, we got a few little goodies in there. And just a lot of downloads and like kind of little special things here and there. There's just,
we don't want to
exactly. But those are the highlights.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you stuck through this whole thing, really appreciate you being here. And if this sounds like something that you might be interested in, go to onlinetrainer.com/academy or just Google Online Trainer Academy and you'll find it. And I hope that you join us. I really do. I'm super, super proud of this course. It's crazy. It's been a decade that we've been doing it and just how far it's come and how far it'll continue to go. So, I hope that you join us. But even if you don't, appreciate you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.